Vistara Prime was the sort of world people visited only when they wanted the galaxy to forget their name. A dust-ridden frontier where twin suns scraped the land dry and the biggest. Excitement in a month was a power relay burning out for Nathan Cross. Former war medic turned small-town mechanic, it was paradise. He patched water pumps, soothed Mrs. Kellerman's malfunctioning android, which insisted it was a dairy animal, and buried himself in the sort of simple work no one bothered to record. He wanted a life without echoes, and for a long time, he had one. But the universe is nosy. It always finds the people trying hardest to disappear. The courier arrived like a glitch in reality. Armor flowing in impossible curves, absorbing sunlight instead of reflecting it. Not a normal messenger. Not a normal anything. The figure placed a shimmering case on Nathan's workbench. 50,000. Credits. Payment for compliance. Attached was a sealed summons from the Sky Throne. Queen Seraphina. Vial of Andrales, ruler of star systems, sovereign of mathematical impossibilities, was demanding his presence. Nathan wasn't impressed by titles. He was impressed by the credits. Enough to repair Vistara's failing water system. Enough to keep the colony alive during the next dry season. Everyone has a price. His was survival, just not his own. He boarded the transport at dawn, the ship that carried him to the sky. Throne treated physics like a polite suggestion. Hallways folded in on themselves and engines hummed with harmonics humans didn't naturally understand. The pilot, a human accustomed to the bizarre, flew as if this was all perfectly normal, orbiting high above the planet. The Sky Throne shimmered, a palace suspended in nothing. With towers spiraling outward like frozen lightning, bridges connected spaces that should not have touched. Gardens bloomed in exposed vacuum, their petals shimmering like Neb, U-L-A-E, Garrett. A steward whose patience had clearly evaporated years ago, guided Nathan through shifting corridors and rotating chambers. They eventually stepped into a throne hall, woven between crystalline trees that sang faint notes of light. Garrett whispered that when the queen was angry, the trees played jazz, and then Nathan saw her. Not a monarch. A memory, Queen Seraphina Vial. Was the same young lieutenant he dragged from burning wreckage on Canthro's gate 12 years earlier. A terrified soldier with violet eyes who had clung to his hand while he kept her conscious with terrible jokes. He had saved a life. He had not realized he'd saved the future ruler of an empire. The plague that wiped out the royal line was swift. She became queen because she was the distant 47th successor and the only one left. And she had spent 12 years hunting for the medic who promised she wouldn't die alone. Their reunion wasn't soft. It wasn't romantic. It was political. Seraphina appointed him to her advisory staff before he could argue. Her council erupted. Lord Kavaris, all angles, ambition, and surgical cheekbones, protested loudly. Nathan, already trapped in the palace's nonsense geometry, leaned into the chaos with the one weapon he had left. Sarcasm. Seraphina laughed, a clean, explosive laugh that cracked the tension like glass under a hammer. Later, in a garden where water flowed upward and gravity had given up, Seraphina finally said the truth. She didn't bring him to repay a debt. She brought him because she needed someone who remembered who she was before the crown, someone who saw more than the queen, someone who had once held her hand in the fire. But the Sky Throne was not safe. That night, during a formal dinner filled with suspicious soup and uncomfortable nobles, the palace trembled. Light sputtered. The air split. Assassins wearing light-bending armor phased directly into the hall. Guards fell before they understood. They were under attack. One assassin lunged for Seraphina. Nathan moved without thinking. A decade of instinct slammed back into place. Unarmed, he grabbed the only weapon he had, his medkit. He hurled it with the fury of someone who had absolutely had enough. The heavy kit smashed into the assassin's helmet with a solid skull-rattling crack, buying Seraphina the heartbeat she needed. Her light blade ignited. The attacker fell. When the smoke settled, and panic thinned. Serafina started laughing, uncontrollable, relieved. Wild laughter. Surviving an assassination attempt because her advisor threw medical gear at a killer was apparently the breaking point she needed. They escaped to the Royal Observatory. The palace humming quietly as crystalline trees played uncertain melodies below. Serafina, stripped of regalia, looked once again like the frightened soldier, yet saved so long ago. She finally asked the real question. Stay. Not for duty. Not for politics. Stay because I need someone who keeps me human. Someone who tells me when I'm being ridiculous. Someone who throws a medkit at death itself. Nathan stared out at the stars, then at the woman who had spent 12 years searching for him. Maybe his quiet exile on Vistara had never been a life. Maybe it was just a waiting room. I'll stay, he said softly, taking her hand, the same hand he once held in burning wreckage. But I'm going to need better equipment. And a map. This palace makes absolutely no sense. Some promises don't expire. And some paths only open when you stop running from the ones you were meant to walk.